You want us to leave?
Curtis?
Are you serious? I heard that.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
Are you talking to Curtis?
It said Curtis.
Did you say Curtis?
Did you just say my name, Curtis?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
You're in trouble, man.
Who are you? What is your name?
Are you the deacon?
Deacon. Oh my God.
He did, I heard that.
Oh my God.
I feel you and I know you're here.
Welcome to Paranormal Outreach. Join us as we deep dive into paranormal cases and unsolved crimes all around the world. Here with you, former bounty hunter and now paranormal investigator, your host, Curtis Freeman. Viewer discretion advised.
Hello everybody. Thank you for joining Paranormal Outreach. This is your host, Curtis Freeman. Today we are going to have a good show. Why is that? Because I will be interviewing my good friend and known medium, Julie Ann Thomson. She is known for her work in the paranormal field and helping others. So without no further ado, I'd like to get right into it. So how are you doing, Julie?
I am fantastic, Curtis. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome.
So, we go back, I would say at least a couple of years with...
Couple, yeah, it's more like 6. Yep, long time.
With Paranormal Investigations. And, the things that I witnessed is unbelievable with what you can do. And I just want you to share it with the people on how mediumship works. I know a couple of things when we was investigating that you picked right up. You picked things up right away, and only the team knew it and not you. So if you could explain a little bit on how you use your gift, if you can explain how that works, that'd be great.
Sure, I'll do what I can. So, it kind of it depends on what I'm doing. So, a lot of mediums work in different ways. The way that I work, we have these things that are energy centers in our bodies, and they're, I don't know, everybody knows about the chakra system, I'm assuming, and I just sort of open them up and wait. I ask my guides, and I ask my ascended masters and my ancestors, and I work with this collaborative, and they are called the Council of Elders, and they bring spirits to me. And that's generally when I'm doing one-on-one readings for people, or when I'm doing galleries where there's, 50, 100 people. And that's the way that usually goes. And there are 2 different ways for doing mediumship. One is called direct, and one is not. And going direct means I can go straight to a person and say, this is your father, this is who it is, da-da-da-da-da. The other way is to say, well, I've got a spirit here, can anyone claim it? But when it comes to doing things paranormally, that's a different realm, because when I'm doing mediumship for people, it's only human entities that come through. You and I both know that there's more out there in the paranormal world than good folks that have passed over.
If I can just step in real quick. Now, we was on an investigation in one location in Boston, and there was a haunted barn, and we was outside the barn, and we was walking to the field. The owner of the barn, who invited us to do the paranormal investigation, was telling me that there was a man that died by a big horse, a Clydesdale horse. Julie had no way of hearing us because she was in front of us and we was further back. And all of a sudden, Julie stopped and she started looking around, and she's saying that she was feeling pain in the chest. And she was referring to the guy who was stomped on by this Clydesdale horse. Do you remember that, Julie?
I do, yeah, I do. And I couldn't believe that it was a horse. I remember telling you guys, it looks like a horse, but it can't be a horse because this thing's huge.
Everybody was shocked. Like, we couldn't believe it. Like, how did you know that, you know? And so I could bear witness to the abilities that Julie has, because I've seen it firsthand multiple times. And so, like, how do you pick up on these spirits, Julie, when you're doing your stuff? Like, how do you feel them, and how do you know they're there?
Well, a lot of different ways. So some mediums see things clearly, some mediums hear things, some mediums feel things. I do all of the above. So a lot of times it's as real to me as, you know, someone standing right next to me. And sometimes they'll communicate with me directly, or sometimes I'll feel how they died, and I'll actually have the feeling, like when I got that pain in my chest.
Yes.
And I could actually feel like I was being stomped on. But then it's kind of weird. I can see it from a bunch of different angles. Like I can feel it as though it's happening to me, but then I can see this big horse with this man. It's hard to explain how it happens. And again, it's two different things. When I do things paranormally, that's very, very different, especially when there's something ugly, because they generally tend to, like, they know what I can do and they know what I am. And they tend to be nastier and make themselves known in a more aggressive manner. As you know, we've been together on a couple of real dicey situation.
Now, do you remember that other paranormal investigation we did in Lowell, where we was in the attic of this location? I don't want to give the location out, but we was in the attic of this location, and you started crying. Do you remember that? Because of the girl. I do. And she was murdered and put into the wall, and you started crying because you could feel her pain.
Yep, she was beaten. She was just beaten, and I could hear her screams, and then I could feel it, and I could hear her screams inside my head, and I could feel kind of the life coming out of her. And if you remember, we actually heard her with our own ears screaming after I had, you know, brought enough energy through that she was able to do that. Yeah,
we actually got the audio of that.
We do. Yeah. We got some pretty creative.
Yeah, we do.
But
yeah.
Sometimes it's kind of traumatic, you know, because I have to remember to separate myself from it. That it isn't, you know, me that's going through it. But yeah, it can be very, very intense because this was a human being, and this was something that was just horrific that she went through, and I could feel and see all of it. So,
wow, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing how you do what you do. And I remember the first time I got to this investigation with you. I got to an investigation and I called you a psychic. And you said, no, you're not a psychic, you're a medium. And I remember you stopped in your tracks and you corrected me right away. I never called you and I never called you a psychic after that. But when I was... what was that?
In point of fact, I am a psychic. All mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. There's a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember that. I'm like, okay, I will never call you that again. But I remember, you know, just sitting with you, it's like, it's just an astonished. I was astonished on how you can do what you do, and then you can turn it off. Like when we did these investigations, you would get all into it, you would do what you do, and when we were done, it was done. You would turn it off, and you wouldn't even think about it, you know?
Yeah.
So you was in total control.
Yeah. You know what? That's a lot of training. So I've been doing this since I was in my crib. And, you know, my mom, she literally for a lot of years thought that there was something wrong with me. Like maybe I was schizophrenic or something. It turns out I'm just, you know, I torment dead people.
You're gifted. And, you're gifted is what you are.
But back, you got to remember, I'm 55 years old. So back in those days, nobody talked about this kind of thing. You didn't have all these terrific paranormal, TV shows and like your radio show, and none of that existed. So people had no idea back then, and even if they did, it was very stigmatized. It was kept very quiet. So I mean, I always knew I was different, and like, why do I have friends that no one else can see, and that kind of thing when I was a kid.
You know what makes me wonder? You just said it. You said when you was a kid and you was having these abilities, nobody really didn't understand it, and they thought you were schizophrenic. I wonder how many people are actually put into like a sane asylum because they have that ability, but nobody actually understood it, and they actually thought they were schizophrenic or some sort of craziness about them,
Do you know that my day job, I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, which I find hilarious because
I never knew that.
Yeah, that's what I do. So I'm always saying this when I go to galleries and I'm in front of 60 people, and I say, yes, in fact, I'm a psychotherapist and I talk to dead people. So feel free to trust me with your mental health needs. But I will tell you, I have clients that are in my office sometimes, and I know, and I'll think to myself, you poor thing, you're not having mental health issues. You're an empath and you are feeling things around you so intensely and you don't even know it. And so that's why I'm going to be moving into my own practice. And when I do, it's going to be spiritually based. So, I mean, a lot of people won't mix, spirituality with counseling because, it's supposed to be very clinical. But for me, there are so many of us, like when I was a kid, I had no idea this kind of thing was happening to me or what was going on. And I think people need a place where they can go, where they can feel safe and say, listen, these are the things that are happening to me, and be very accepted. And not only that, but being able to put a name to it for them.
Okay, Julie. We are here with Julie Ann Thomson. She is a medium, a well-gifted medium. And trust and believe, I have seen her in work. I have seen her in action. I have seen her do her abilities that will totally astonish you. So, Julie, back on the topic. Do you remember just recently we did an investigation at a bar, and we was upstairs in the bar and we did a recording, an EVP. And it was of the little kid that just said he wanted to go home. Do you remember that?
I do.
Now, how does that make you feel? Knowing that we're making connection to the other side, and you have a little kid crying out that he just wants to go home. Knowing that, you may have the ability to help him. How does that make you feel, or what does that how does that make you feel, and what does it make you want to do?
Oh, well, obviously, that's heartbreaking, right? So heartbreaking. You hear a child and they don't know, what's happening to them, or where they are, or why they are there. But so I actually, of course, then, will ask, and I start to talk to them, and I'll ask them, particularly when they're older. If there's an adult, I'll kind of like try to work things out with them. But I cross them over. And you've been with me when we've done that also.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like just showing them, basically opening up, I guess some people will call it a portal, but opening up, I guess, a portal, and just sort of escorting them through and asking, angels and guides and their families to meet them and to bring them home. That's how I refer to it.
So do you believe that there are, multiple dimensions working alongside each other?
That's a really interesting question. And I ponder that a lot. Can I prove that? Probably not. I definitely know in the world according to Julie that reincarnation definitely exists.
Okay.
But there's a being called Bashar, and that's a collective. And there's a man who actually...
Did you say Pathar?
Bashar, and if you look it up, it's pretty interesting stuff. But he's actually not a he. He speaks through a human being, but it's a collective of different entities, and they have a lot to say about the spirit world. And one of the things that they'll say is that there actually is dimensions, and there's more than we could probably comprehend as human beings. Now, I personally, I don't know if I buy that or if I don't, and it's definitely, above my pay grade. It's beyond the realm of what I do.
Right.
But I mean, dead people speak to me, so I suppose anything is
It's possible. Everything is possible.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of hard for me not to think that there are multiple dimensions working alongside each other when we can do investigations and communicate with the spirit world. And, because obviously we're here in one dimension and the spirit world is another dimension, but we can communicate with them and they can talk to us and respond. The barn, we asked a question and one of the investigators said, "Who are you?" That was the owner, I'm sorry. The owner said, "Who are you?" And the spirit said, "Deacon." Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that for sure.
Yeah, so they're responding to us. And then one of the investigators said, "Who do you want to leave?" And it said, "Curtis."
Yeah.
So to me, I'm thinking that we are coinciding with a parallel dimension, and they're responding to us when we speak to them, which they are.
Yeah. They're somewhere, right? They're somewhere. I don't necessarily know what that somewhere is. And again, it's very distinctively different when I'm working in the world of the paranormal investigation than when I'm doing straight-on readings for people. They come specifically for their loved ones. They're not saying, "Hey, you got a demon hanging around?" It's not like, they come specifically with grief and looking for healing. And and it's interesting because so many people who have passed will literally sort of confirm. I mean, some people call it heaven, some people call it Valhalla, some people call it, it's different for everyone, but they'll confirm that they are in this place of intense beauty, and that really is sort of whatever they make it to be. And I find that really fascinating because and it really brings a lot of comfort to their loved ones. But when you're out in the field, it's open season. Anything that wants to come does.
Yeah.
And we're looking for hauntings, and we find them.
Yeah. I mean, it's to a person that's not into it, who has not witnessed it, or who's not doing paranormal investigations, when they see it, they kind of say, "Okay, am I seeing what I'm seeing?" They kind of doubt themselves. And then when they actually realize what they're seeing, they're kind of scared to tell somebody because they don't want that other person to think that they're kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you tell somebody if they witnessed a paranormal activity? How would you tell somebody how to, say, tell somebody else? Or how would you help that person?
You mean someone that's never had that happen to them before?
Right. So if you never had a paranormal experience and all of a sudden you start seeing things moving across the room or something, and they're kind of scared to come out and say it to somebody, how would you tell that person, what to do? How would you help that person?
Well, I can share my own, vast, knowledge or bank of experiences that I have had. But these days there's so much out there that makes it so easy now for people to accept at least the topic. Not everybody's going to believe, but at least the topic of, wow, I think that I had a paranormal experience. But if it were me, I guess I would say, listen, this is what I know to be true. And I always say, what I know to be true, and $3 will get you a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, right? So take it for what it's worth, right? So, no one knows me personally, so you don't know if I'm just a nut, but I know what I know. And when it comes through with validation, particularly when we're on an investigation, and I'll say something like, a spirit named Deacon is here, and the next thing you know, it's coming through our ghost box that says Deacon, and sort of validating what I just said.
Right.
Or I'll say, you know, we've got a female who's 26 and she's blonde, and you'll ask, you know, are you a blonde 26-year-old female? And then the next thing you know, the K2 meter is going up to red, and it's saying, yeah, absolutely. And somebody else is shooting a camera picture across the room, and we see, you know, an anomaly in the photo as we're having that experience. So when there's a correlation of evidence, you know, I mean, it's still it's up to everybody individually. I mean, some people you'll show things to, and they're not going to believe no matter what, and that's fine. I mean, I always say it's irrelevant to me what anyone else believes. I'm not there to make anybody believe anything or not. You know, I just show things for what they are as I know them. And everyone else can interpret as they go.
Now, I believe in heaven and hell. How would you know if you're dealing with something portraying itself as somebody else?
I can't miss that. And the reasoning is, so this is a very long answer, but for me, everything about mediumship is frequency. Okay, so the greatest minds in the scientific world tells us that everything is made of energy. Absolutely everything that ever was is made of energy. So in my mind, everything sort of vibrates at an energetic level at a different frequency. And so when I am connecting up to angelic realms or to people who have passed over, their frequency is so much higher because they've ascended. And so they have to kind of like slow theirs down to reach down to human level, and I have to quicken mine up to reach them. So if it's something that is darker or is different, it wouldn't make any difference if they're trying to show me a different face, because I can still feel them. I can feel where their vibration is at, and I'll call them on it. You know, it's a very different feeling. And if it's something really powerful, I'll start to get sick. You know, and they've done that to me before. You know, I'll start to feel very nauseous, or my head hurts, or, you know, they'll try and jump me in that way, and I have to really kind of push back.
That's correct, because during our investigation in Boston, you and the other medium had gotten sick. Do you remember that? And we had we ended the investigation because we didn't want to take the chance on harming our investigators. And you were saying how sick he was.
But you also remember how that ended, right?
Yes. Oh,
I don't know if you want to tell your audience about that.
Oh, my keys. Yes.
Keys and 3 o'clock in the morning in a 7-Eleven parking lot. So.
Okay, yes. So we had ended this investigation due to the fact that Julie and another medium were feeling very nauseous and sick. So.
Well, yeah, but also I got jumped, and I got jumped to the point where it kind of overwhelmed me and started to overtake me. And the other medium, very skilled, very wonderful woman, saw that immediately, because I started hissing and I started swearing and I started becoming very black, and she knew that immediately. That's the only time that's ever happened. But that was the most intense investigation I have ever been on.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a demonic entity tell me they wanted me to die several times, if you remember.
And there was the one in the field. What about the one in the field that referred to itself as Satan?
Yeah, and it said Legion. We are Legion.
Yep, we are Legion.
It kept, yeah, man, and they're like, die. Like, who wants to die?
Now we're in the field, and we're getting responses back on our ghost box saying that, you know, we are Legion and this is Satan and all kind of stuff. And so we decided, okay, we know what, we're going to end it and go back to the barn. And we get back to the barn, and then all of a sudden you and the other medium was feeling sick. So we was like, okay, this is a little too much. We're going to end it, come back tomorrow or next week. So,
Yeah, but that darkness came after us, and
oh yeah. Yes, it did.
we had to have a ritual that actually had to remove it from me. But that's not the first time crazy things have happened to me like that. I joined a very quiet, very underground. I was tapped to join this team that was called Dominion Ministries, and there are a lot of very famous people who are on TV now who were all part of this. And what we did was a very spiritual thing in terms of we would be the ones that people would call when they couldn't do anything about it, like paranormal teams that would, and I always say, be careful what genie you're taking out of the bottle if you don't know how to put it back in.
Correct.
And so, really hard black things that others can't do anything about, we would come in and we would do rituals, we would do deliverance, which is like an exorcism, except it wasn't with a priest, so I mean, I've been around those things and I've seen those things, and I had enough happen to me that I knew that I really had to give up that piece because it got very, very dark. I mean, I've had warnings that, they've scratched me, they've branded me, I've woken up with bruises all over my body because I was going to an investigation that night and they knew I was coming. Yeah, it's very real. People don't believe it, and a lot of mediums will tell you, oh no, there's only love and light, and that's great because, that's what they do, and they work in only that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But for me, all these poor, desperate people who are having these experiences saying, no, they are real, and no one's listening, and no one's there to help,
Oh, yeah.
Someone's got to do it.
So that kind of brings me to this. So when Julie and the other medium and the other couple of investigators left, it was just me and another investigator. And we was getting ready to leave, and I locked my doors. And I'm sorry, I didn't lock my doors, but I put the keys in the car on my passenger seat. I didn't lock the door though. And when I went back to the car, my keys were gone. Now, only I knew where the keys was, and the keys were gone. So me and this other investigator was looking through my truck. We went from the back of the truck all the way to the front of the truck and back again, and we just could not find those keys. So we called Julie and we let them know that my keys were missing and I couldn't leave. Now, come to find out, the other two investigators that left came back. They looked through the whole truck. They couldn't find the keys. And then Julie says, look on the seat. So we went and we looked on the seat and the keys were there. Now, that's the first time I actually ever had in my life a spiritual activity where it actually took something physical of mine and moved it. And then put it back. And that's what makes people, think they're crazy, because 1 minute they have something there, they go to get it and it's gone. And then the next minute they're looking all over the house and then they come back and it's right where they had it the first place. Mm-hmm. So I witnessed that firsthand. And then later that night we had to do a cleansing. So.
But if you remember, that wasn't the only incident of us having something missing that night. So one of our investigators was very good with using dowsing rods. And he had a set of dowsing rods, and he always kept them wrapped up very nicely together. And they were in his equipment bag.
I remember.
And he opened them up, and both of them were there, and he laid them down on his bag. And we went and investigated a couple of different rooms, and when we came back, one of them was gone. Yeah. Now, every one of the investigators was together with us, and there was absolutely no one else on the premises. We were in this back country place where it's not like someone was wandering by.
Yes, I remember.
And the same exact thing happened.
Yeah.
And then we found it again.
Now.
So, but that particular place was such intense energy that you really, we probably could have levitated and it wouldn't have surprised me.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was so much activity. It was the tension in the room was so heavy. I mean,
that was one of the first times that I was able to see 3 different time periods all at the same time.
yeah, I remember you saying that. I remember you were saying that.
And if you remember, our researcher validated one of the time periods that I had seen. It was very, very clear to me. And the other medium also saw Indians.
Yes.
Saw tribal people.
And somebody getting married, you were saying?
Yeah. I saw an Indian princess marry a very high profile political white man in the town, and it was supposed to bring things together, and we were able to validate that. Our historian was able to validate that it actually happened.
So I don't know if you remember this. Now, that night, I came home and went to bed.
Yes, I remember this.
So what happened was I went to bed and it was like 90 degrees out. It was this sweltering hot. And I had smelt something come through my window. At least that's what I thought. It smelled horrible. It smelled worse than a skunk. And I woke up due to the smell. So I kind of just brushed it off, hoping that, the AC will push it away and everything. So I went back to sleep. But then I woke up the second time, and the room was really heavy, and the smell was just intense. Now, I'm next to my wife. I don't know how she didn't smell it, but she did not wake up. She didn't even move. So the smell was intense. I woke up, but I felt like there was somebody else in the room with me. Now, mind you, it's probably about 3 a.m, and I look around, there's nobody there. But my body's telling me that there's something not right. So I kind of closed one eye, and I kept one eye open, and I still didn't see nobody. So I kind of started dozing back off, but next thing you know, something jumped on my chest, and I was sinking into the bed. Now, I'm not a small guy, so I was trying to move, and I could not move. I couldn't move my arms, I couldn't move my legs, I couldn't do nothing. I was powerless, but I can see everything. Now, whatever was on my chest, I could not see it, but I can definitely feel it. And the only way I was able to get my wife's attention was to kick her with my foot. And I did that the hardest I can. So when I kicked her, she woke up and she's like, what? And she looked over and she seen that I was hyperventilating and I couldn't move and I was sweating really bad. And she's like, what are you talking about? What's wrong with you? There's nothing there. So she kind of took a hand and she swiped it over me and she goes, see, there's nothing there. But when she did that, all that pressure on me released itself and it was gone. And I jumped up out of bed and I was like, oh my God, it followed me home.
Mm-hmm.
The very first thing I could think of was you. I said, I gotta call Julie. And then that's when I told you what happened. So, what could somebody do to protect themselves from wanting to become an investigator and actually bring something home with them and them not knowing it?
Yeah, so that's a rough one. So I sometimes worry for new investigators because it always sounds fun. Ooh, we're going to go out and be in the dark and we're going to, and believe me, I was there first, right? Everybody was. It's fascinating. It really is. But these things are real and you don't really completely believe it, even though you say, oh yeah, I do, until it really happens to you. And until there's consequences of that really happening to you. So this is why myself and the other medium that was there, you remember we open up with a ritual asking for protection and bringing forth our angels and bringing forth, different gods or goddesses or whatever to us to ask for protection for all of us. And then you close with the exact same thing, prayers and being very, very clear with any entity there that they are not allowed to attach to you or follow you home or come into your car, nothing.
Yeah. But if
sometimes things
I'm
are
not
just
mistaken, Julie, didn't we do a closing that night?
And I was about to say, and sometimes, no matter what you do, they are powerful enough that they can kind of push through that. And that's what happened to you. And if you remember on that particular investigation, and like I say, I've done, God, over 100, I'm sure, investigations. That was the most intense investigation I've ever been on, because it was multifaceted. There was many things going on there, and the energy was just crazy. But if you remember, each one of us on the team, and there were 6 of us at the time, got a warning before we even got there. We each had a paranormal experience before we even got there.
Oh, yes. I remember. Yep. Yes.
And so we all knew going in that this was absolutely crazy. And do you remember that one of our teammates got poisoned?
I was just going to talk about that. Yes.
Please do.
My
and
good
there was
friend.
absolutely no reason why that should have happened.
No. My good friend, Mike, is one of our investigators on the team. And, we're all at this location. Now, he finds a storage area in this barn. And in the storage area, he finds files that has, they were like DOA files, dead on arrival. And that was the weirdest thing. Like, why would these people have all these files of people dead on arrival? And he was looking through it. And then, like, within, 10 minutes later, he's outside, and he's literally, like, dry heaving, wanting to throw up. I'm like, what's wrong with you? He goes, I don't know. I suddenly just feel sick. And he's wanting to throw up, but there's nothing coming up. But he's just constantly dry heaving. So I said to Julie, I'm like, Mike is sick. And, all the other investigators started coming around and stuff. And, it was just a lot of things happening. So we decided to end it. That was the night. Everything was happening. And we decided to end the investigation and come back on a new day. So when we left, I dropped Mike off at his house. And I said goodbye and everything. He was sort of kind of getting better. But then he got sick again and had to get rushed to the hospital. So come to find out, he calls me in the morning and says, Curtis, I'm home. I'm like, what do you mean you're home? He goes, oh, I had to get rushed to the hospital. I said, well, why? He goes, because I was poisoned with arsenic. I was so shocked. Like, I couldn't believe what he was telling me. I'm like, Mike, come on, man. Don't play around. He goes, dude, I got the evidence. I got my medical records. He goes, I was poisoned with arsenic. I said, well, Mike, how are you poisoned with arsenic? He goes, I don't know. I said, he goes, I just don't know. That's what the doctor told me. So he says he started feeling sick when he was looking around the files. I said, well, I don't think anybody would put arsenic in the files, though. You know what I mean? So it was just a bunch of weird
and
stuff.
We had already been there like a good 8 to 10 hours, so it's not like it, happened previously and then he was, it happened there on those premises. But in that investigation, we were truly in the presence of true evil. And there was a couple of different things going on there because, like I said, I could see different time periods. And some of those things that were there were older than that. And if you remember that night, I was wearing a light blue skirt and a lighter shirt.
Yeah.
And I only mentioned this because my boyfriend at the time was there with us. And he saw me walking up the road, the driveway to the barn, and he yelled to me. And I was only about, 40 feet away. And I refused to turn around, and I just kept walking. But the only problem with that is I was up at the main house visiting with the barn owner and the homeowner, and it wasn't me.
So he saw
a
doppelganger.
Exactly. So anyone listening to this would probably think any one of these things would have been, crazy enough. But the fact that we had so many of these things happening all in one night,
Yes.
Over the course of two investigations, was just the most incredible investigation, I have ever been on it and probably ever will.
Oh, it's definitely terrifying at some points. I mean, I was in the room with the owner, and we was doing an EVP, and we asked, "What is your name? Who are you?" And it replied, "Jane Doe." So for anybody out there that don't know what Jane Doe means, it's a dead female without no identity. So basically, it's a female that is deceased and nobody knows who she is. And they call it a Jane Doe. Yeah. So, I mean, when she heard that, she kind of freaked a little bit. And this is right before we went upstairs and the deacon revealed himself. So it was a heck of an investigation. I mean, but Julie, what do you think? What do you think about exorcism? Do you think that it is worth it, or do you think there are other ways to release a demon from someone's spiritual soul or somebody's body?
I will tell you, the Catholics got it right. Say what you will, but you know what? When you're hitting the hard stuff, you want to call in a priest, and you want to call in people who have had, a lot of experience with this kind of thing. I personally don't feel like, first of all, in any kind of demonic possession, it's not a one and done. So it's a process, and it has to be consistent. So it can take quite a while to eradicate an infestation or a full-on possession. And it's very dangerous, and it's wildly frightening. But no, I would say no. That unless you are a trained exorcist, don't even try. Really, don't even try.
Yeah. Because
they really can and will come after you and the people that you love. And I know this firsthand.
Right. I mean, it's scary when you're seeing somebody acting a certain way and kind of like, talking weird and everything. People don't know, the difference between, like you said before, if they're crazy or something's really wrong with them. That's where it's hard to tell the difference. I mean, I actually, Catholics, you have to go through a whole line of proving that somebody is actually possessed before they even do anything.
That's right.
Because a lot of times it comes out that the person is, how would I say, not all there. So
mentally ill.
So, I mean, it's kind of hard, but when you see in somebody who's, I never personally seen it, but I've read cases where people are speaking languages that they never even known before, or, they're doing weird things that your body shouldn't allow itself to do. I mean, that would kind of tell me, maybe we ought to bring in, a demonologist or something. I mean, what do you think about demonologists?
Well, I'll share with you. So, I was present at a deliverance, and this young woman that we were working with, I had been to her house several times, and we had all kinds of collected evidence there, from shadow people to, the EVPs, which electronic voice phenomenon. It was so black and so dark that as soon as I even started to walk on the property, I wanted to vomit. And I know at that point something big is there. And this woman was becoming, so there's a few different stages to full-on possession. She hadn't gotten that far yet, but it was definitely rooted there. And I watched this maybe 110-pound woman. 3 of us had to hold her down.
Wow.
3 of us. while we did the deliverance, and the power that came off of this young woman, and the vocal changes and the hissing and I mean, it was absolutely incredible. She was a mom of two kids and just a very sweet person. But when we began the deliverance, it was absolutely a huge change. You would not have known it was the same person. So yeah, those things actually do happen. It goes in that way. So please voice your actual baseline question again. I'm sorry, I get off my little tangent there.
Well, no, I was just saying, like, what do you think about demonologists? Do you think they're, somebody who you would call when you believe somebody is possessed, or would you still go on the route of calling a priest?
Well, you know what? You have to make sure, like, for sure, that that it definitely is something demonic that you are working with. So while it does exist, it's not as common as, in some of our popular ghost hunting TV shows would have you believe.
Yeah.
Very often, it's just someone that was a particularly nasty person here and became really, really nasty there. Because anything that you are will amplify, and you have that choice. And so people here, if you think of people who are like the Hitlers of the world, or the really, really bad people, the Chuck Mansons, that kind of thing, they can become so much darker once they pass. And so many times it was a previously human entity. And there are other things out there that are unpleasant that aren't necessarily demonic, and even in the demonic realm, much like in the angelic realm, there are different levels. So there are more powerful ones than there are others, lower level ones. So yeah, a really good adept medium probably can tell you that that sort of, not probably, very, very well, yeah, probably they can tell you that, but demonologists definitely have their place, because I always say, know thine enemy,
yes.
and know what you are dealing with.
Yes.
And a good, learned demonologist can tell you the names and the characteristics of a lot of those particular demons that you may or may not be dealing with. And so, yeah, it's helpful. Anything that you have in your arsenal to deal with something that horrible and strong and unknown to a lot of people, you definitely want to have all the help you can get.
Okay. Well, we are coming about 15 minutes to the hour. So I just want to do what we call, Julie, a runoff. And I ask you a list. I ask you a list of questions, and you just give me your thought. So let's say this. What do you think about shadow people?
Well, I mean, I have evidence of, I actually have a video of a full-bodied shadow person. And that's what we in the biz call the Holy Grail, right?
Oh, wow.
That's what we're always looking for as paranormal investigators, that blatant kind of evidence. And I have one. So, yeah, shadow people, yeah, they exist. Without question.
Okay. What do you think about the Ouija board?
Something that is one of my favorite topics, because people lose their minds about Ouija boards. And in my community, and I say my community because, once you're a medium and you're known, you find your tribe. And there are actually bazillions of us. So most will tell you, stay away. They're horrible. Witches will tell you, stay away. They're horrible, that they open up a certain type of portal. People are very frightened of them. And I would say with good reason. They really are dangerous, and they can be. But my argument generally is, wait a minute, it's a divination tool. So what's the difference between using a Ouija board and using a pendulum, or
Correct.
using dowsing rods, or using cards, or doing what I do? I'm a divination tool. You know, I mean, so to my friend's dismay, have used Ouija boards quite often, but I also know that it comes with, and just like paranormal investigating, you have to know how to protect yourself, because when you are using a Ouija board or any tool for divination, it's certain folly to just say, whoever wants to come through, come on in.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're inviting in then.
Exactly.
Because, you know, the good spirits are not the only ones listening and waiting for their turn to jump in that invitation to get there.
Exactly.
So when I utilize one, before we do, and I do it with friends who are also very experienced, we will put up all kinds of protections. We do ritual. We'll bring in, you know, protectors, and I've utilized them. But I, again, would not leave that open for, you know, a person who does not have a lot of experience. Because I do believe it's valid and that it can be risky. But again, not just a Ouija board, and just about anything that you do in the paranormal realm.
And you know what's crazy is that they have this Ouija board as a toy in the kids section in the stores.
Do you know I saw one that was actually Barbie themed, and I thought, you have got to be kidding me, you know?
Wow. Yeah, they're getting younger and younger with these instruments that once they use them and something happens and they don't know how to close it, they call people like us.
That's right. And you know what? I just would like to say, and we kind of touched on this earlier, but for any new paranormal investigator or you know, anyone that's thinking about going into the field, get knowledgeable.
Yes.
Get knowledgeable quick.
Yes.
Talk to someone like me. Talk to someone like you who's experienced. Talk to witches. Talk to people that can help you to learn ways to defend yourself or to protect yourself. If you're walking into a place blind and wide open and you've got no idea what you're doing, you're asking for an attachment. You're asking for dark, nasty things to sort of permeate you. So get as much training and information and, you know, study as much as you can before you just kind of throw yourself out there.
And you know what? And believe it or not, Julie, I used you sort of as a mentor when I put this team together. And you was telling me, you know, this is what you do, this is not what you do, and this is the way things need to be done before you do an investigation. Because when I put this team together, it was like, you know, it was a dream. I always wanted to be a paranormal investigator and go and do haunted houses, and it'll just be so fun. And you was like, hold on a second. You know, you need to study on what you're doing, because this is a whole new field. You know, it's not all fun and games when something gets attached to you and, you know, starts doing things. So I kind of looked up to you when you was coaching me, because I remember one time it was an investigation and you started doing, you know, you started getting into it and you started feeling things, and I was standing close to you and you was like, look it, you need to give me my bubble. You need to let me be in my bubble, because if you get too close, you're breaking the connection. So I started learning things from you as we was going on doing these different investigations. So, you know, I understand exactly where you're coming from. It's just like when Mike said that somebody sent him a Ouija board and you was telling him not to use that because this, that, and the other can happen. You know? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's not that, okay, we have an investigation team and we're going to be doing this, we're doing that. But we're learning as well. We're learning as we go in there. I mean, when we did that barn, I remember something grabbed me from the back and kind of yanked on my shoulder. Mm-hmm. And you was like, is that Edward? You remember that? He was like...
If you remember, there was something there that was not fond of you in particular, and we've got a lot of EVPs that sort of validate that, and they were sort of targeting you, and it was not good.
Yeah, you said that they didn't like me for some reason because they looked at me as the alpha male.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you remember, that's what I kept saying to you. You need to stand up strong. You need to like yell at this thing. You need to beat it like someone's hitting on your wife in a bar. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. And let me tell you,
gotta get strong.
if I didn't have that camera, I would have probably been outside that barn. Because when I looked at when that thing touched me and I turned around, there was nobody there. If I didn't have that camera and I wasn't in the company of you guys, I would have probably been outside that barn. I'm telling you, it was something different. It was totally something different.
For everybody that doesn't know you, I just want to let everybody know this man is like 6'3". He's like 210, solid muscle, like no joke. He's a tree, right? So I just want everyone to know that.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm telling you. But when you get used to it, well, you never get used to it, but when you get to a position where you know how to fight back, then that's when you can take control of a situation. Like you. You know, you can take control of a situation, and instead of it attacking you, you can turn it around to where they're not the strong one, you're the strong one. Your energy is solid around you. So, I mean, and I learned all that from you guys.
Yeah, but you know what? Again, don't always be around people who are, that are more learned than you. I'm always honored when I can be around people who are more learned than I am. Like you said, there's always more to learn. There's more to experience.
Yeah.
Because none of us, right? Because we're all human. None of us has all the answers, and who knows what all the real answers are. We only have what we have in our limited experience.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this. When you watch horror movies and they're talking about haunted houses, you go in a haunted house and things just start flying across the room and doing all that, that's all Hollywood. That is so Hollywood. When you go into a haunted location, what you feel is energy. You feel the room being heavy, like something's pressing down on you. Or the hair on your arms or the back of your neck will stand up. And, you smell a certain way. Or you smell something that smells a certain way. And that's normally what you get. You get EVPs, like Julie said, you get the Holy Grail, which is a full body apparition. It could be a full shadow in the corner, and you can clearly see it, or you can actually see an actual human, and then he walks away and disappears. So that's, you see that. But in the movies, they amp it up. That's why they call it Hollywood.
But I'd also like to say that on the bazillions of investigations that I've been on, there's so many times where you're just sitting in some cold, stinky basement, waiting for hours, and nothing happens, and you can get dead energy, and there's some investigations where we find absolutely nothing, and so we spend hours and hours, and just so it's not all a ghost around every corner. We're talking about places that that one that you and I did in Boston was extraordinary. Like I think there would be few people in the world maybe that could top what we went through,
Yeah.
To me, it was like the Amityville Horror,
I mean, you could write a book on that.
And we've talked about that before because it was really that extraordinary.
Yeah.
And then, other investigations, we're psyched just to find one EVP and we're losing our minds, right? So it's pretty exciting. So,
well, what about the place in Lowell where we were sitting at the table and we heard something growl, and everybody heard it, and it was on the voice recorder, the recording machine, but we heard it with our actual ears that something growled.
And it wasn't that far because we were sitting at a booth. And because it was a bar/restaurant, and there was you across from me, and next to me was another investigator, and it was only maybe 12 feet behind your head.
Yes.
And when we heard that, and it was a deep, awful, and it was very loud, and you could actually feel the vibration of it, and I saw your face.
That's the first I have ever witnessed, heard, been around, any of that. That's the first. That was my first investigation that I did.
Yeah.
And let me tell you. I was ready to go. I was so ready to go. It was the feeling that you get knowing that this is real and you've never been on this before. You know, you want to stand up. You want to stand straight. You want to be strong. You want to show them, yeah, I'm a rookie investigator, but I can handle this. But man, once you start hearing that stuff, it turns your whole thought process around, you know? Yes.
Yeah, definitely. The first time you hear an EVP, because everyone says, oh yeah, you know, people could make that up, blah, blah, blah. But the first time you actually hear one and you hear someone or something responding directly to a question that you have asked.
And nobody else is
people,
there.
That's when people get the fever. Once you hear something that amazing and surreal and, you know, tangible, that's it. You know, you want more. You want to find more. You want to hear more. You want to know more. And I think that's what it takes non-believers to another, you know, at least to a place of, what if, you know?
You get what I call the sickness.
Yes.
Yes. You get what I call the sickness.
I would agree. Yep. And sometimes it can change your life. Look at the paths it's brought you and I down.
Yeah. Yes. So what do you think about when people say good witch, bad witch? What would you say the difference is, if there is?
Being a witch myself and having been for quite some time and done a lot of, you know, years of training. And you know, I just want to preface this. You asked me something earlier about, you know, me and my abilities. You know, I have natural abilities. I have what was given to me, but I've also honed my craft. I have honed my craft by learning my knowledge, but I also sat in mediumship circles for years. And sometimes I would do 2 and 3 a week and developing my skills. And so, you know, again, I would encourage anybody to put that kind of dedication into whatever it is that you do. So, phrase that question for me again, please.
So, good witch, bad witch.
Okay, so here's the deal. There really is. There can be a good Christian and a bad Christian. You know, there can be a good Buddhist and a bad Christian. There's a good person and a bad person. And that boils down to the thing about witchcraft and being a witch is there are no rules. Everything that you do is guided by your particular beliefs, and whether you believe in God and Goddess, whether you believe in certain other gods, whether you believe in evoking those gods in order to enhance your spells. But as much as there are light beings that we can call upon, there are dark beings that can be called upon, and that's where the rubber meets the road in terms of, I don't want to call it integrity because I don't want to insult anyone. I know a lot of people that work with the dark. I don't associate with those people, but a white witch works only with light beings. They're only interested in healing. They're only interested in using their magic for good. I am sorry to say that there are a lot of, you know, witches who do not. There are full covens who work with dark things and will call forth dark things.
Now, do you believe that they can do magical things as like put curses on people or, you know, cause harm to people by putting spells on them?
Without question, I believe that. Without question. And you know, a lot of people will say, oh, as long as you don't believe in it, it's not real. Okay.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's see how that works out for you when things start going to crap in your life and you don't know why. And that's because somebody threw some stuff at you that was really strong. I mean, I had someone throw some stuff at me, and I had a huge attachment. It was bad. I had to go through quite a few rituals with other white witches to get it off. But before it happened, I mean, everything kept happening. It was horrible. I got crazy sick. I got into a car accident.
Oh my.
I got into 2 car accidents. accidents, like back to back. They were not my fault at all. Like just all this crazy stuff. And I said, all right, this is not, normal wear and tear. And then I found out later, and I found out who did it as well. And it was stuff that someone had thrown at me. So yeah, I definitely believe that. Yes, I do.
Okay. And to the viewers and listeners out there, how can they get in touch with you on doing your tarot card readings? And if they need anything else, like any type of readings, how can they get in touch with you?
This is, and I get this hassle all the time. So I so many people that are in my industry or in this, end of it make such a business out of it, and God bless them, all the power. I have never done that, and I've been, ridiculed and by people all the time. Like, why do you not have a website? What are you kidding me? I'm kind of old school, so I have a phone number and I have a email, and that's really generally all I put out there, because that's all that I really need. I don't do a lot of that selling myself or that kind of thing. So
okay.
So I have email is higherlove444 at AOL.
Okay.
And phone number is 603-490-0077. And I also work through a store called Omen in Salem, Massachusetts. And I'm on Facebook, Julie Ann Thomson. So, there are a few different ways to find me.
Oh, well, I mean, it is amazing. Every time I talk to you and we get together and start talking about different things that we've done. I mean, it's never a boring time with you. It's never boring. We always have something to talk about, and you never know what the future holds. I mean, I would love, after this COVID-19 stuff get over, to get deeper into more investigations.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in. I'm all over it. I'll be doing this until I join the other side.
Yeah. And I mean, it's always a thrill. It's a thrill. And at the same time, if you can help somebody move on, we definitely do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's been a pleasure, Julie Ann Thomson, once again to talk to you and have you tell our listeners about our past experience and the things that we've seen and done together.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Curtis. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you very much.
Take care, my friend.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So you heard it yourself, guys. That's Julie Ann Thomson. Great person. Good friend of mine. It's always a pleasure to talk to her. And, like I said, you always have to watch your back when you're dealing with stuff in the paranormal. I've been an investigator for years, and we always need to protect ourselves. I slipped up once, and it followed me home, like you heard her say, and, it attacked me. So, it's very important that you do clean yourself of evil presence around you and around anybody else. And just take care of yourself. So I hope this has been a fun time. I hope this has been a great time. And I hope you learned a lot from our listeners and, from our viewers. Julie Ann Thomson is the #1 medium to me because she knows her stuff. So ladies and gentlemen, from the west to the east and the north and the south, it is your man, your host, Curtis Freeman, wishing you well. Stay safe and be good, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you on the next one. Love you all. Take care.
You've been listening to Paranormal Outreach with your host, Curtis Freeman. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to tell a friend. Also, make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Podbean, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Drop by and visit our YouTube channel and Facebook page to get more content. So stay safe and take care.